Welcome to the Pop Culture Lab, where we break down your favorite movies and music. This week we're reviewing Ant-Man and the Wasp, QuANTumania. Connor, let's get in the lab. Connor, how's it going?
Yo.
We're back. Doing
Yes,
this
sir.
one again.
Number 2. Second time's the charm.
So we recorded an episode on QuANTumania last week, and we had a few technical glitches, and so that audio file got corrupted. Here we are. We're going to do our best to do it all over again.
Yeah, here we are. I'm so sorry. It was all my fault. I feel terrible.
I only wish that it was a better movie that we were reviewing today, because having to do this over again is especially, it's like twice galling.
That's true. Yeah, I wish I was just lavishly praising this movie and falling over myself for it, but I'm sadly not.
Yeah, that is not going to be the tenor of our conversation, I don't think, either last week or this one.
No, more of a poo-poo fest.
It was tough. It was a rough go of it, but, you know, brought some people to the theaters, I guess.
Yeah. We are Feige's guys no more. Feige's losing a lot of guys these days.
He is. Marvel is not, it's not the golden name. Having that on stamped on your movie isn't quite the golden name that it used to be.
No, now I'm finding my eyes rolling into the back of my head.
Yeah, that's not what you want.
No.
Well, before we get into the movie, let's talk a little bit. What are you watching these days?
Let's be positive.
Yeah, let's talk about something maybe that you are enjoying watching right now.
Well, you'll be not surprised to hear this. I am enjoying the new episode of The Mandalorian, season 3, episode 1, chapter 17. Yeah. It's so funny though, because if you didn't watch Book of Boba Fett, and that one episode that gave you a whole mini Mandalorian season, you could really be confused. Because at the end of season 2, they were separated because Luke came.
Right.
And now in the beginning of this season, they're back together. And if a casual viewer would be like, wait, what happened?
Well, and
like,
even I don't honestly remember what happened there.
Well, you watched Book of Boba Fett. You said
I
you
did.
liked it.
Yeah, I did.
Well, Grogu was training with Luke, and then he gave him the choice between the Beskar chainmail armor and a lightsaber. And he went with the chainmail, showing that he wants to be with Din Djarin.
Right.
And then they reunited, on that planet during that goofy battle at the end of the show.
That's right.
Like, they went in a cart, and he jumps into his arms like, woo! Yeah. Very, very strange storytelling to have crucial plot happen in one episode of a different show.
I mean, it's this connected universe stuff, you know? I mean, it's Star Wars is very much going for that in the same way that the Marvel universe is going for it.
They are, but having watched it now in that way, I was happy at the time of Boba Fett to have the extra Mandalorian content, but now even in retrospect, it just feels really messy. You know, you can't... It was one thing when the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they all kind of build on each other and they're going to this point, and even if you missed a couple, you could kind of fill in the gaps. This was like literally a huge chunk of the story just missing.
And I mean, even for somebody who's seen it all, like I have, I totally blanked on all that happening, so.
Yeah. It would be like if you started, I don't know, Infinity War with the characters off on some other planet. You'd be like, well, how'd they get here? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway.
But you're liking it? You're liking the first episode, right?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I mean, it's more of the same. I thought of you as I was watching it. I mean, it's not Andor.
Yeah.
But it's not Obi-Wan. You definitely have to love Star Wars. I'm seeing more and more just like the corniness and the, these are my character motivations.
Yeah.
But I just love the world building of it so much because a lot of it is like this Clone Wars kind of stuff that I didn't watch the animated series. They seem so for children to me, just the look of them and stuff. So this is like feels like an adult live action version of those storylines. There's these, like, spoiler alert, there's these space whales that appear in this episode. Like when you're in hyperspace and you're going really fast, you can like see the like silhouettes of these cool whales. Yeah. And they're from the animated stuff, but just cool to see new
space whales
things. Yeah. Yeah, it is cool. They're really cool. And they can travel through hyperspace, and I think they're going to be crucial to the season, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I am definitely going to catch up on that at some point. I think we're going to get on track so that we're watching new episodes as they come out together.
Yes, we'll hold hands and watch them.
Exactly, yeah. Look longingly into each other's eyes and then grow goose.
Our adopted son.
Well, what I'm watching, this week I was going to go and see, finally, Everything Everywhere All at Once. It was playing at Majestic Bay here in Seattle. But had plans, got dinner, went to the movie theater, and was about to buy my ticket. And they said, oh, we just had our last showing at 4 p.m. today. Now Creed is playing, so they took it out of the theater. So missed that opportunity and instead went home and watched The Menu, which I really liked.
I didn't realize they changed over the same day. Or like, I would think a movie would finish on a day, like very, very late, and then just not run the next day.
It was weird that it was in the middle of the day. They had a 4 p.m., matinee.
That is weird. But, they probably took it out of theaters and then put it back in for the Oscars.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that they even had it in theaters at all, so can't really complain that they took it out.
And no offense to you.
Yeah, I had time. I had plenty of time.
Well, and shows what a maybe not cinema goer you are, that you didn't check online ahead of time.
No.
I would never go to see a movie without Fandango.
Well, I mean, I'd looked at it the day before, and they were like, well, yeah, we have a 6:45 showing. And so I thought, really? For sure, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was literally like they'd been playing it like every day that week, for a 6:45 showing.
But did you check that day's showings? You just checked for
yeah. I made an assumption.
The daily showings. Yeah,
you know what they say about assumptions.
Yes.
But The Menu, which we watched instead, was very good.
It is very good.
You should have seen my face. There's one scene, and I think we will probably end up talking about this movie at some point, so I won't get too far down. But there's one moment that I just had a look of utter shock on my face for a full minute. I was just mouth agape, and Henry is just cackling, looking at me.
He'd seen it.
Yeah. No, he was watching it with me, but my reaction was priceless. I think.
He hadn't seen it previously.
No. We were watching it together, so. Yeah,
I think I have a feeling what scene that might be, and I think you might have given me a preview.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes, the mess.
Yeah. I really enjoyed Tyler's bullshit as well.
That was a good one. A good one.
I loved the names of some of these dishes, yeah.
I mean, talk about great writing in that. It was expertly crafted as a movie. It was so much detail work put into it. We really are going down.
I know, here we go. Let's stop.
Yeah, let's stop.
We'll come back to this.
Yeah, so that's what I'm watching. We'll come back to The Menu. But now let's talk briefly about the plot of Ant-Man QuANTumania before we go into our takeaways and thoughts on the movie.
One thing I do want to add, though, we don't have to talk about these in depth, but maybe just for anybody who wants some recommendations or things we might talk about in the future, I'm also watching The Last of Us. Mm-hmm. Which you should start watching.
Definitely.
We should check out the games.
Mm-hmm. I have it. I have the game. Haven't played it.
Another big thing I'm watching is Poker Face.
I've heard that's really good.
Rian Johnson produced. Mm-hmm. It's like Columbo. It's like his take on Columbo if Knives Out are his takes on Agatha Christie.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever see Russian Doll?
No.
I've heard that's really good too.
Yes. Different. Still Natasha Lyonne.
Exactly.
It feels similar in like a very Natasha Lyonne centric thing, but that's like a time loop deal, which I love time loop things. Sure. I bet I would like it. This is like it's Columbo. She's solving murders and she
gets like violently ill or something when somebody's lying, or she can tell when somebody's lying, something like that.
No, the violently ill when someone's lying is
Knives
from
Out.
Knives Out. Actually, interesting connection. You're right.
But she can tell when people are lying.
She's a human lie detector. Yeah. But it's like Columbo in the sense that you witness murders happening at the beginning of the episode, and then you watch her solve them. So the audience is always clued into who it is.
Right. I like that.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very throwbacky in all the right ways. Are you watching anything else good?
Watching The Golden Compass on, or his Dark Materials, the HBO show.
I wanted to check that out.
It's excellent. I highly recommend it. About to finish the first season. Really impressed with the main character who plays Lyra. You know how many problems I have with child actors, particularly not in the MCU so much, but definitely in Star Wars. And the actress who plays Lyra is so good.
Nice. Yeah. How's Lin-Manuel?
He's tolerable.
Good.
That's kind of all I need out of Lin-Manuel, because I think he's a great. I enjoyed Hamilton, but I thought he was by far the worst singer and actor in Hamilton. So I really appreciate his writing chops, but I wish he would kind of stay off the stage or the movie screen. But
sure.
But he was fine. He was fine.
And McAvoy?
He has not been a super central character so far, but he's going to be later down the road. There are 3 seasons because there's 3 books, and he's a pretty central character later.
Nice.
Yeah, I wish I could remember her name, but there's a British actress who plays Lyra's mom, and she's insane. Very, very good actress, and it's very interesting.
What's that character's name?
Oh, man. Coulter, Mrs. Coulter.
Oh. Who's the other evil lady?
I don't know if there is another evil lady.
Isn't there?
No, I mean, Nicole Kidman plays Mrs. Coulter in the movie.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a great show, though. I highly recommend it. You should definitely watch it.
Yeah, I meant to. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really impressed by what they're doing with their demons. They all have these spiritual animal characters. Every person, it's kind of like another manifestation of their own person. And the way that they show how humans act like their daemons and vice versa, they have those animal traits based on whatever their daemon turns out to be. So a guy whose daemon is a snake is going to be kind of, sneaky, and cool. You won't trust him. And then there's Mrs. Coulter's is a monkey, and the way that they weave that into her characterization is really interesting.
Yeah, they do that in the books too, though.
Yes, right? Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I can't wait to finish it.
Good suggestion.
Indeed. Well, let's jump into Ant-Man.
I think we're scared to.
I know, yeah.
Procrastinating.
We're procrastinating. We're delaying here. Filibustering. Okay. So,
one more thing, actually.
Right, exactly. Okay, let's do a quick summary of the plot. So if you haven't seen it, if you're concerned about being spoiled, this is where you stop.
Find another podcast.
We're going to be spoiling a lot of things for you. So Ant-Man, at the beginning of this movie, he is on tour. He's having a good time, saved the world. He wrote a book. Exactly. He's got a popular podcast. He's kind of the only Avenger who is really engaging with the public, and he's eating it up. He is loving it.
Engaging is putting it lightly.
Right. Well, a lot of them for various reasons. Either the populace is kind of scared of him, in the case of Wanda, or they're just kind of aloof and not interested in that. I would say probably the Hulk is not super interested in brushing elbows with the general populace. Captain
America has no interest in fame.
Well, I mean, Captain America is... didn't they joke he was on Mars or something?
On the moon.
On the moon, that's right, yeah.
Actually, it mirrors Tony Stark in some ways. Early Tony Stark he ate all that up, The first movie ends with him revealing his identity as the superhero, and he's the billionaire. He's just, he's having it both ways, eating it all up. Yeah.
And Scott, he was a criminal, and so this is a total about face for him. The first 2 movies was him essentially on the run from the law, or in these really precarious positions. Here, he's on top of the world. I mean, he's an Avenger. He saved the world. Everybody loves him, except the guy at the coffee shop who doesn't know his name, thinks he's Spider-Man.
Right. They're always making jokes about the bug themed superheroes. Right. Mark Ruffalo says at one point, there's an Ant-Man and a Spider-Man,
And now they're adding the Scarlet Beetle or whatever from Moon Knight.
Oh, Scarab.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a bug, right?
Yeah. Blue Beetle is coming for
Blue
DC.
Beetle, yeah. Well, there's a lot more bug-themed superheroes coming your way.
But you're right. The theme of his opening monologue is, how did I get here? This is crazy. My life is crazy. I was an ex-con. Yeah.
But very quickly, they kind of establish that not as all as it seems. Cassie is, already getting arrested for her social activism and,
Typical Gen Z stuff.
I know. And she's kind of disappointed in Scott, even though he's still trying to kind of do this worldwide media tour. She feels like he's kind of phoning it in now. He's an Avenger. He's got these powers. He should be, more serious about it. He shouldn't just be kicking his feet up. He should be doing something.
Yes.
And Hank has been taking Cassie under his wing. She's, I guess, very smart. And so...
We're going to be saying things like that a lot, I guess, apparently.
It's because they put in these lines like, your daughter built the Hubble Space Telescope for the quantum realm in her garage. Right. And it's just like, it's so mock serious. I can't take it seriously at all.
I don't think Michael Douglas could either.
No. Talk about phoning it in.
I read it differently. I read it like he was like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think he wasn't trying. I just thought he was like...
just hamming it up.
Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, this movie's stupid.
like how Samuel L. Jackson will be in all these terrible movies and we'll just, have a good time doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair. Either way, Hank has taken Cassie under his wing. They have like very brief conversations when Scott picks Cassie up from jail about trying to establish some kind of a relationship between them two, that he wasn't around because he was in jail, and because he was saving the world because he was in the quantum realm for 5 years, all this stuff. Totally reasonable if you're Scott's daughter to feel that way, but they pretty much just leave it there. They really don't address this throughout the rest of the movie, in my opinion.
They touch on it at times, but where I think it lacks is, show don't tell.
Yeah.
Not to get ahead, but I just think the relationships in this movie across the board suffer from, I'm not seeing it. I'm being told this, that, or the other, but I'm not seeing it. I don't buy the relationship between Scott and Cassie. I don't buy that Hope has the hots for Scott in the least.
There's no chemistry there.
There is like the opposite of chemistry. She looks like she's just like thinking about how much money she's being paid to let him caress her cheek or whatever. It's like, man.
I mean, it's not just the chemistry though. They also they don't spend hardly any time on screen together, like in any real way, like talking about their relationship, talking about their fears or their, anything. There's no real character development in this movie.
No.
Anyway, so Cassie's been building this quantum telescope thing and turns it on. Janet Van Dyne kind of freaks out. She's like, oh, this is sending a signal to the quantum realm. It's in the trailers. You got to turn it off. And, they turn it off, but it's too late. And
which, again, in the previous film, they were building a tunnel to the quantum realm.
Right.
Which surely wasn't problematic, but the signal is.
Yeah. There's some fudging here.
I'm being picky, but... And I think if you look close, there is a lot of that throughout all the Marvel movies. There are loose threads that don't go anywhere.
Sure. I mean, you could certainly ask like why Janet had already been in the quantum realm, previously, and they've spent, several movies going back and forth between the quantum realm. Why has Kang not showed up before this,
Yeah, and you see Chronopolis actually in Ant-Man and the Wasp. So that's cool. Kind of hints at it, and then they do take a little bit of dialogue in QuANTumania to say, well, we didn't go deep enough before.
Sure.
I appreciated that.
Either way, they get pulled into the quantum realm and separated. And so Scott and Cassie are on one group, and the rest, Hank and Janet and Hope, are in another group. Since Janet she spent 30 years in the quantum realm, she's she knows her way around, and so their group kind of has more of an agenda. They go hit up a bar.
She's like, I know how to rent a Stingray.
Right.
We'll be on our way.
Exactly. Right at home away from home.
I've got this great guy. You guys are going to love him. It's not weird at all.
That great guy ends up being Bill Murray for all of, 5 minutes, not even. But I liked the Bill Murray appearance.
It was fine.
I thought he was having fun, and
yeah, he was a plot device.
Sure.
But he was fine. Yeah, nothing bad.
So they drink this shot at the bar that allows them to hear and understand what all the people around them are saying, because they're all speaking this, alien language.
Oh, you're right. I didn't catch that. So it's the same as what you're about to say.
Exactly.
Oh, I actually did miss that.
So it's really quick. But they do that, and then Krylar comes, which is
so
Bill
to back
Murray.
up, when they first arrive in the quantum realm, they can't understand any of the entities they're interacting with.
Yeah, they're all speaking in alien
Everything's
language.
freaky and weird. Yeah.
So they go to this bar. Krylar shows up. Janet has, I guess, given him a call. I mean, I don't even know. Do they have phones in the quantum realm? Let's not think about that.
Quantum phone.
And he's an aristocrat, some kind of wealthy guy, and clearly has some power here. And they catch up. Oh, Janet, how you been doing? They, make some innuendo about their past relationship when she was stuck in the quantum realm. And very quickly, Krylar kind of turns on them and basically says, things have changed since you left. We're under the thumb of this despotic ruler, who we will see in just a moment.
Mm-hmm. And you don't agree with his choices to align himself with this ruler, but at the same time, they make it clear through what he says that her abandonment of all these people kind of left him almost no choice. Like, he was so vulnerable. It's like, if you can't beat him, join him.
Right.
It's an understandable approach that he took.
It is, except that the audience doesn't know what Janet has done at this point, because Janet is being super cagey about the whole thing. This didn't make any sense to me, why she was withholding this information. But she won't say what went wrong. What is it that why is she so afraid of this guy? She keeps saying that we're in danger. There's somebody here who's going to try to kill us or take us or whatever. But she won't say anything
because it's building the suspense.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a complete writing flaw. I mean, we should call it what it is.
Ham-handed for sure.
Yeah. You can do that thing where you make a character hold on to important information for half the movie, but you need to come up with some reason or some way in which they're limited in expressing that,
Right.
They're stopped somehow from communicating that information, or there's some really compelling reason why they aren't sharing it or can't.
Yeah. Either way, they escape from Krylar, and let's leave them there, because we got Scott and Cassie in the other group. They are strangers to the quantum realm, essentially, at least this part of the quantum realm. And they crash land. They're very quickly kind of attacked by this amoeba-like thing they get saved by these weird-looking people, kind of a random assortment of revolutionaries.
Rebels, sort of.
Yeah, and
hodgepodge group of rebels.
A guy with a laser beam for a head, a guy who has no holes. There's
a guy who reads minds.
Yeah, who's from The Good Place. If you've seen The Good Place, you'll be familiar with him. Cheaty. And yeah, they get the same. They go through a different process to understand what languages these people are saying. And that was one scene that did work for me, I will say. The drinking of the ooze.
I was initially very caught off guard, and I was like, Marvel, what have you done to Ant-Man? Like, what am I watching? This movie is weird and kind of gross and absurd. But then I was laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In particular, the guy who has no holes is, I think, a great character.
Shout out to David Dastmalchian. He's the guy who was Polka Dot Man in Suicide Squad. He's been killing it. And he was actually in the other Ant-Man movies. Hello?
Yes. Oh, that's right. I remember that. Friend. Yeah. The Russian guy.
And I did appreciate that he was this character, but it almost speaks to the sloppiness of Marvel.
That they recast him, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, really? But he sounded very different.
He sounded very different. I thought he made great use of his little screen time. He was really only in 2 or 3 scenes, but all of them are super memorable, where a lot of this movie is not very memorable to me, but I can vividly remember every scene he was in.
I'd say the same for Polka Dot Man.
Yeah.
Although that's a more memorable movie, but But he's really good at doing a lot with a little.
He did great. So
even in the other Ant-Man movies, he kept Baba Yaga, the ghost. I mean, he's good. I like that guy a lot.
Yeah, he was great. So they get saved, but then kind of kidnapped by these revolutionaries, and so they're all chanting this alien language, and Scott's kind of freaking out and resisting and everything, and Cassie says, drink the ooze, and he doesn't get it, but they, kind of forcibly pour it down his throat, and then finally he can hear what they're all saying, which is chanting, drink the ooze.
It's funny, yeah.
It's pretty funny. And their seeming safety lasts for all of 3 seconds after that, because who comes but MODOK?
I was just gonna say, speaking of MODOK, this film is kind of at its best in its most absurd moments.
For sure.
It's kind of like it's trying to have it both ways the rest of the time, and then when it's just in full Looney Tune land, right. It's pretty great.
Yeah. At its best, it reminds me a little bit of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where It's like very wacky and absurd, but kind of, interesting in that way.
Yeah, but also eliminating the stakes.
Yeah.
I'm laughing, but I don't feel like anything has any consequence.
That was a huge problem for this movie.
Yeah. I was more concerned for the residents of Toontown.
Definitely. Oh my god.
Movie.
Well, and they do a lot better character development too. I mean, like you really feel for a lot of those characters.
Remember when the shoe gets dipped in the acid?
Absolutely. I cared way more about that shoe than I did about any of the characters in this movie.
Maybe MODOK. MODOK was the shoe for me, but not even as much, and he's not as cute.
He was good though. So the revolutionaries, they very quickly established that they're fighting this despot as well, or they're trying to stay off his radar. And so MODOK is Kang, who we find out he's the big baddie in the course of events here. MODOK is kind of his lackey, his rabid dog, I guess.
His henchman, his weapon.
Yeah, and MODOK is 100% treated as comic relief in this movie.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel threatening at all.
No. They don't even explore the relationship with him to Kang, really, other than Kang just kind of torturing him.
Right, or really what he can do beyond. We do find out that he's the one who pulled them all into the quantum realm. He identified the communication that was coming from Cassie's machine up at the surface world, and because he has this giant brain and all these cybernetic enhancements and stuff, he could pull them all into the quantum realm. So we find out that's one of his power set.
Yeah, and I think that's fairly close to the comics. I mean, he's got the big brain and all these little enhancements, because he's just ahead. We didn't mention that it's Darren Cross.
It is Darren Cross, yeah.
Yeah,
from
highly
the first
speculated.
Movie. He's the bad guy of the first movie. He's Yellow Jacket.
Which, say what you want about this interpretation of MODOK, or even using Darren Cross as MODOK, but I liked, it felt very classic Marvel, taking something that they had just done in a movie randomly, where he shrinks down like limb by limb. You watch him compress like that, and whoever looked at that and went, like what if he was just a big head left over?
Yeah.
And like, it's whether or not you like the choice, it's creative.
For me, it totally worked. MODOK was one of the few things in this movie that I really enjoyed.
But you don't. The comic book character has this sort of really loyal following for his own inherent weirdness. And so I do understand the fans that are disappointed that it wasn't just kind of the classic character.
Right.
And he was just the butt of a joke. But anyway, continue.
So MODOK, attacks these revolutionaries and absconds with Scott and Cassie, brings them back to Kang's palace or whatever. We get a very brief scene where you get a little bit of background about Kang, about what drives him. He kind of talks to Ant-Man. We get a lot of the dialogue that's in the trailer about, have I killed you before? That kind of stuff. Just...
Are you the one with the hammer?
Right.
That English accent that maybe goes in and out.
a little bit. I love Jonathan Majors, but definitely he leans into the British accent more times than others.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I mean, the same thing happens with Elizabeth Olsen in her Sokovian accent or whatever.
Yeah, that's a different problem maybe, but I feel like Jonathan Majors is just doing Lear.
Maybe. Yeah, could be.
That's kind of what...
Trying to bring some damn gravitas to this movie.
And he did.
Make there feel like there's some actual stakes.
Yeah, plot be damned.
Right. Anyway, so Kang has this conversation with Ant-Man. You get the kind of, basic, I have something you need to do for me. Well, I'm not going to help you. You're, clearly a raving lunatic dictator. And he's like, oh, well, how about I just torture your daughter for about 3 seconds? I mean, that also didn't really work for me. It wasn't very good storytelling. It was just like,
ow.
Yeah, like they had to like make there be like a torture scene or like something to like some reason for Scott to go and do this, because everything he does is for Cassie. But it just felt so just kind of tossed in there. Like it never really felt like Cassie was any real danger. Like it was so quick.
I know, like I wish he would have dangled her over a lava pit or something.
Yes.
That would have felt like more danger. Like, oh, she could actually fall into that. He just went like he was Darth Vader.
Right.
I mean, I didn't understand. This really was Peyton Reed's repurposed Star Wars movie. I mean, Kang functioned exactly as Darth Vader would have.
Pretty much.
And it was like he was using the Force. I know I keep getting hung up on like the mechanics of what's going on in this movie, but I feel like Marvel almost always took some time to explain how everything was done. Mm-hmm. Stark's tech to how the Captain America's shield, how vibranium works, yada, yada, yada. I just like, what is his tech? It's just from the future, but it's so advanced that he can just manipulate like space. I know he can manipulate time, but how can he control people's movements and limbs, and why? Can he control their suit? Is it because he has such advanced nanotechnology or something, or some kind of technology that it can tap into all surrounding technology? Sure, but just say something.
Exactly.
Or make it resemble something that we know. Or
well, I'm thinking about, in particular, they, over the course of the Spider-Man movies, and even beyond the Spider-Man movies, when he appeared in, Avengers and Civil War and all that kind of stuff, they did so much storytelling about what his suit in any given movie could do. In a lot of cases, that was a huge part of the plot of the movie, is just like him kind of learning his powers in his suits.
True.
And in this, it's like they show you the ship that Kang crashed in on, and they show you the kind of technological city that he's built, and then his actual suit, what he has on. But they don't really do any showing, like to your point. It's all just like kind of told, or just in the case of the torture, just like briefly showing that he can, I guess, pull her apart or something.
Yeah, and there's too many things.
Yeah.
If it was just that they didn't explain how he can move her around, even if they didn't explain that, they don't really explain the mental connection with the chair.
Yeah. They
don't explain. What did you just say? What example did you just use?
The torture shit?
No. You were another piece of his technology we were just talking about.
His ship, his suit, the city that he's built. I mean, MODOK.
Yeah, I don't know. They just the power core. That's what it made me think of. They don't really explain how that functions either. Like, what is it made of?
It's also not even like aesthetically consistent.
No.
Like in a lot of cases, if they show you some alien technology or some, different civilization, some big baddie, there's like a definite aesthetic to like the way that character and whatever civilization they're from appears. Like it all looks like it's from the same. I felt like his ship and the power core and stuff, that did not look like the city that he was in or the suit he was wearing.
No. Yeah, color schemes, and you're right, like the Scepter and Loki and the Tesseract.
Yep.
And then all the aliens that came through and the Avengers, it did have a look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wanted an explanation of the suit, the chair, their relationship, maybe where they come from, what is the core, how does it work? They didn't even say that he was Nathaniel Richards.
Unless you've been watching Loki, you wouldn't know that.
Even that doesn't drop the name.
I think they do.
No. I'm a scientist from the 23rd century, or whatever he says.
So then how is it? It is confirmed. I know it's confirmed that this Kang is Nathaniel Richards. So how do people know that?
By who?
No, it's straight up confirmed.
But by who?
I don't remember. I thought it was in Loki. I'm pretty sure it's in Loki.
I would rewatch that again. I do not think that he's actually mentioned by name. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But they could change his name for the movie. I mean, I guess maybe Kevin Feige said it's, Nathaniel Richards. He does stuff like that. He'll confirm stuff, but I don't think they actually mention it. I'm just saying as a casual viewer, even if they did mention it, it was very subtle one time.
Well, and they do a little bit of recapping essentially what you find out in the final episode of Loki season 1, which is you get a little bit of who is this guy? He's from the distant future. There's all these variants of him that in basically any given timeline, he is going to get this technology and he's going to use it to connect with other universes. And that will lead to a multiversal war. And so this guy has been exiled, Kang, has been exiled by his fellow variants, you find out, to the quantum realm, so that and they don't really tell you why, but it's implied that because he's even bigger and badder and scarier than all the rest of those variants.
Yeah, but his drive and his actions mirror that of He Who Remains almost exactly.
For sure.
Not in the exiled part, but in the
He Who Remains being the big bad of Loki.
Yes.
Yeah.
And who looks very similar to
shockingly similar.
But my point being, yeah, their motivations mirror each other. So you're right. It is the same in that sense. He's like, the only way to stop all of me from fighting and starting this multiversal war is by eliminating down to one timeline.
One timeline where I'm the winner, coincidentally. Yeah.
Sure, but one of them has to, right?
Right.
If he knows how it ends, he knows that it always ends up with He Who Remains. So
right. At least one of them,
Exactly.
And that's what he says is like, I'm the kind of the devil versus the devil you don't. And it's like, there was a line, in fact, it's like stifling bureaucracy or like unrestrained chaos is one of the things that He Who Remains says in the final episode of Loki. And he basically, that's the choice he's presenting them with. He's like, you can take this stifling order, that's it, stifling order or, unbridled chaos, basically. And so they chose the chaos option, and we're going to see that play out over this next phase or two.
We saw it play out in the script for this movie.
It's true. It's true. A little sneak behind the curtain here. We spent at least 15 minutes just like trying to decipher the plot to this movie, because it has been 2 weeks now since we saw it, and it's a fairly incoherent plot. So
that's why we've been talking about it for 37 minutes so far.
Anyway, so let's continue.
Another peek behind the curtain. I'm not wearing pants.
A peek behind the kimono. So Kang tortures Cassie. Scott very willingly agrees in short order. And what is it that Kang wants? Well, you're kind of learning about what he wants at the same time as you're getting flashbacks from the Janet perspective, which is that a long time ago when Janet was stuck in the quantum realm,
Quantum. QuANTumania and the Wasp. I thought they would like make that joke at some point or something.
Yeah.
Quantum. It's literally ant is in the name.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway, go ahead.
So when Janet was stuck in the quantum realm, this ship crashes down there, and it's Kang who's inside, and he saves her from some alien things, and they kind of become friends in a way. It explores their intellectual peers is what is the way that I guess they would say.
And they play it like the last two people on Earth.
Pretty much.
You're going to get along.
And they're also both brilliant scientists. We know Kang is, and Janet certainly every bit as much. Hank, in the previous movies talked a lot about how Janet was, kind of the only one who could keep up with him. And so she's certainly a smart scientist in her own right. And so they're working to basically try to repair his ship so that they can both get out of there. And you get a little bit of kind of a montage of that whole process happening. You get a little bit... This is kind of some of the character development that they do in the movie is about, in particular, Kang's perspective, I would say. They make him a little bit empathetic here.
I don't know about empathetic, but understandable. Maybe similar to Thanos in that regard. You don't exactly feel for Thanos, but you acknowledge his perspective. It makes sense, but I feel for Killmonger. Mm-hmm. I don't feel for Thanos or Kang in that way. You know what I mean? You watched Killmonger's dad be murdered for being a traitor, certainly, but I feel for that character as opposed to, Kang, I just felt like I understood coming out of that.
Except that at this point in the movie, you don't know that this is a, multiverse conquering baddie. He's just a guy trying to get home, who crash landed here with Janet.
I guess that's true. And for a moment, you feel that empathy.
Yeah, they try to build that up. Basically, they're both trying to get home is really what they connect on. And so they have, some slightly, more touching moments in this. But then very quickly, they're about ready to fix it. Janet has figured out how to fix this ship. And as they're powering up the power core and his ship, it's, I guess, like a telepathic communication software of some kind is in this ship.
Neurokinetic, okay. I think is what they say.
Whatever.
Neurokinetic.
So when she is touching the ship, she can see all of this past history of Kang, of him conquering and killing and,
But only with the power core in it when it's charged up.
Right. Wreaking havoc. So she very quickly realizes that this is a bad idea to let this guy out of here.
He's killing people in the woods.
Yeah.
This can't go on. Why the woods? He's like a technological wizard. What's he doing in the woods?
Well, and this was another thing that I wish that they had just spent a little bit more time kind of painting a picture for us. It was so quick. And
literally blink and you'll miss it.
Yeah, they glossed kind of right over it. But Janet decides to, even though it's going to also leave her stranded here in the quantum realm, that she's going to use her, remaining shrinky-dink things.
Growy dink.
Growy dink? Yeah, growy dink things. And turn the power core into this giant, thing.
Big sun.
A big old sun.
With the 10 rings swirling around it.
Right? No, talk about aesthetics and power sets. That did occur to me, too. We'll see how that plays out. So, that brings us to current day. So that's where Kang is trying to get Ant-Man to go and shrink this power source so that it can be usable and get him out of here. And so he sends Scott. Scott jumps down. He gets in this probability field thing where there is all these variations of Scott. We get another fun little comic moment where they have the guy who's the Scott who's working at Baskin Robbins, and he has a different name tag too. It's not Scott.
No, it's or Jack.
Oh yeah,
which happens to be Paul Rudd's son's name.
Oh nice.
Yeah,
didn't know
and
that.
The whole thing with the probability field is that it's showing you all the possibilities. So when he first drops down there, it's just him, but then he has to make a decision of like which direction to go, and that's when he splits off.
Right.
So it's every possible decision he could make splintering off at every moment.
Right. And visually, I thought this was a cool scene. Where it lets him be essentially an ant. Like they kind of show how a bunch of Scotts would operate kind of like an ant colony, and they do end up in, for Cassie, they all, pile on top of each other, bringing the prime Scott to the very top to get these shrinky-dink things on the power source.
And it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. But thankfully, Hope was going for it at the exact same time. But with the opposite motivation, here Scott is trying to get this and give it to Kang so that he'll free Cassie. Hope is trying to get it so that they can take it away from Kang, make sure that he can't get out of the quantum realm. And so suddenly, even though they quote unquote won this battle here, they're immediately kind of put in this decision of like, well, now what? Because he has Cassie.
And then this is where I always get a little fuzzy, because Kang shows up and slaps him around, and I don't know. They're like about to have the conversation of like, well, we got to save Cassie, and well, yeah, we do, but we also can't give him this core. And just as that's all happening and maybe, God forbid, getting interesting, he just like shows up, and
they just got to keep moving the plot forward. Well, what happens, I guess, is this is where the super evolved ants show up to save the day.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah.
The thing that Cassie built, the Space Hubble telescope into the quantum realm, it was actually run by a bunch of little tiny ants. And when they got sucked into the quantum realm, the ants got sucked in too. And they've actually been down there for like millions of years because of
like time warping stuff.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah. So they're super advanced and they have all this technology. They're like smarter than Kang now. Gee.
Yeah, this was ridiculous. This whole thing was totally ridiculous. But they do show up. They save Hank. They kind of cause enough chaos for them to get away. Who gets the power source coming out of this? I guess Janet. Yeah, Janet has it.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yep. So this sets up the kind of the final climax in the movie, which is that while they're trying to bring the power source to Kang's mansion and get the hell out of here and also leave him stranded here, Cassie is breaking out of jail and starting a revolution. Yeah, I know. Here we go. I mean,
she finally gets to start a revolution.
Exactly.
I'm so Gen Z. The establishment just doesn't get it.
She was very much an archetype in this movie, and I don't know how much to... I didn't feel strongly about the actress one way or another, just because she was not given a lot to work with here.
No, it's not Catherine Newton's fault. So what I'm about to say is not a knock on her, but I've seen so many people coming out of this movie like praising her or that performance. So I loved Cassie. I was like, there's no character. There's no character. Yeah. Just insert 20-year-old here.
Social justice warrior.
Yeah. You don't even really get to explore her learning her power set.
Or like why she feels this way, like why she feels so strongly.
Right. She wants more from her dad, but clearly idolizes him. Like, I want to see that clash of emotions within her, you know?
Yeah, they did none of that.
Nope.
So at the climax, this is all happening. Janet fixes the power cell. They escape. MODOK sacrifices himself. During Cassie's escape, she kind of has a conversation with Darren, and Darren's like, but I'm already a dick. Can I really, like, undo that?
Yeah. It's this big moment. She says, well...
He's never too late.
He's like, tell me how to be. She's like, just stop being a dick.
And again, like, MODOK, it was one of my favorite parts of this movie. So this worked for me. He sacrifices himself and has some great lines as he's dying. At least I was an Avenger.
Yeah. They run that gag into the ground a bit.
They do, and the hyper technologically advanced ants show up again to save the day, bringing down this multiverse dominating, super technologically advanced Kang. Just a couple of ants,
super scary.
Take him down.
Seriously. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids versus Kang. That's what it was like.
So Kang is severely weakened at this point. He doesn't have his suit. He doesn't have his army. Janet, Cassie, Hope, and Hank are all able to leave out of the portal.
Well, there's a portal. You didn't mention that, I don't think.
Okay. The power source creates a portal for him.
Yes. Kang does that. Yeah.
Yep.
He's left to just his wits and his big Creed 3 bicep.
Which, to be fair, I wouldn't mess with that. I think I would.
They look like it hurt.
I think I'd maybe take my chances against the technology rather than those biceps.
Yeah, for real.
So then you get a brutal fight between Kang and Scott. And this was also one of the few things that worked for me in this movie.
Especially the stepping on an ant.
Yeah.
I liked that.
Yeah.
And the camera angle up at that. I liked that.
And it felt pretty hopeless that Scott was going to be able to come out of this one.
It also felt like Kang was a little hopeless. I mean, I will admit, like, for someone who we're supposed to be fearing so much, he felt very... From the time he like floated down and just started going and blasting them, but like right before the ants came, it just felt like
mindless.
He was so just off the rails, chaotic. Like he'd been this calculating, like stiff, like his back was straight the whole rest of the time.
You did get just like in the earlier part of the movie, to their credit, he did have like this kind of angry twitch going on, like his facial reactions. He would twitch in kind of rage almost. You could tell that like under the surface there was some crazy there.
Yeah, but I think you're better off sustaining that and just keeping us wondering what's right below the surface rather than just seeing him lose his cool and then lose. Well, he lost his cool and he lost the battle.
That is the thing that really doesn't work for me, is so he's beating the crap out of Scott, and he's, you know, you kind of get him monologuing. I feel like it's The Incredibles where, you know, Kang, you know, he spends too much time savoring his victory here and has Scott kind of pinned against the reactor where the power core has been put to you know, keep this portal going. And so Scott just like whips out the power core, and just like Janet did, you know, shrinky dinks it or whatever, or shrink and grows it.
And same thing, he's monologuing when Janet does that to him.
Exactly.
So he didn't learn the one lesson in like a bazillion years when he was stuck down there. Yeah.
Very short-sighted. And if you're setting this guy, I mean, Kang is going to be the main villain for the next 3 years of the Marvel
Avengers movies.
2 Avengers movies, yeah. And this one just seems like he was dispatched with way too much ease.
Yeah.
So
I'm tired of talking about this movie.
Me too. Thankfully, we're to the end. So they get out. You know, everybody's happy ever after.
I always end up so angry after talking about this movie. I'm just like in a bad mood.
Hope comes back and everything is right with the world, right? Hope brings Scott back to the surface realm, and we get kind of a second version of the opening sequence of the movie where he's walking around San Francisco, chatting it up with the locals, except that something's not quite right.
But note to that I did not think something wasn't right the first time watching this movie. That did not occur to me. It felt just like a bookend that was like mirroring the opening monologue, sure, like you're saying, like just a way to wrap up the movie and have him acknowledge that maybe Kang isn't dead to himself. Right. That was all I took it for at the time. But having watched, you know, breakdowns and things like that, and having it just sit and roll around, yes, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to point out that I don't think either of us walked, maybe you did, but I didn't walk away thinking, something's not right.
You know, because he raises it, he says out loud, he's like, but didn't Kang say that, if you don't let me out of here, there's an even worse fate awaiting you? Like, didn't he say something cryptic or something like that? And so they were clearly setting the stage for something to be off, right?
Sure.
They were hinting at it, but it wasn't until watching the video breakdowns that you kind of notice some of the little Easter eggs that they've planted in that ending sequence.
But I guess considering the mid-credit scene where
Let's get to it.
Yeah, so you see the Council of Kangs, but I want to bring it back to that final scene because when you see that Council of Kangs, it made me think that all that end scene was really getting at is, oh, that's what he meant.
Right,
if you kill me, there's a million
more
waiting, which is the exact same warning that He Who Remains gave.
Yeah, just in general, I thought this Kang was...
This movie just felt like it spun its wheels.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I didn't learn much more about Kang.
No.
Didn't further the Ant-Man characters in any way.
And
we got a MODOK arc.
Everything was wrapped up with a little bow here. I never really felt like any of them were in any real danger. There were no consequences, seemingly, for any of the main characters.
But and to your point, maybe the ending scene, there's people in green and purple, and maybe Scott's in some time loop, and this is a horrible consequence and fate for him.
Yeah, part of me wonders if he not only was maybe the end where he gets pulled out and he was put in some time loop, maybe that end that we saw wasn't actually what really happened. You know, the fight where he pulls the power core and he puts the shrinky dink, like all that stuff, and then Hope coming back to save him. Like maybe none of that actually happened. That's just how he remembers it.
That'd be cool. Yeah,
it would be cool. But I also feel like we go down this road so often where they're increasingly leaving audiences to fill in the blanks and make it make sense when it doesn't.
And even if they wrote that into the next movie with Kang, like, oh, everything you saw in the end of that movie was just not real.
Yeah.
That feels like a wave of the wand too. I mean, it feels like sloppy writing. I mean, She-Hulk was fun. I didn't hate the ending, but it was objectively sloppy.
Yeah.
Just objectively.
The whole movie was
They
a mess.
admitted it. At least they admitted it. I guess in that show, I appreciated they were like, this is a mess. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have VFX artists. Nah.
Right. Well, that's a good transition, I think. I mean, other than the brief snippet that you get of Loki season 2, the final end credit scene.
Yes. So sorry, slow down. Don't gloss over it. Final credit scene is an actual scene from Loki season 2. It was donated by the creators of that. It's not like an actual tag scene. It's like when we saw the trailer for Multiverse of Madness as a tag scene for something else. It was like actually part of that. I guess it's not like that, but it's an actual scene from that show. And this actually had me kind of excited. Wow. Because Victor Timely, we basically see this Thomas Edison-esque figure who is played by Kang again.
Sure, Jonathan Majors.
Clearly Loki and Mobius, sorry.
Right. Do that every time.
I know. Are, trying to find Kang through time. That's what they're trying to do. So they're in the past, they're in like the 1900s basically. And so this Victor Timely guy in the comics, I guess, goes to this town of like Timely, Wisconsin. Also, Marvel used to be called Timely Comics.
Oh, I like that.
It's a nod to the actual chronology of Marvel itself as a comic publisher. So yeah, Victor Timely is this guy's for Kang, and he basically introduces technology to this tiny town. And in the comics, he's not some threatening variant in the same way that like Rama Tut is, I don't think. But I don't know. It'd be cool if whatever technology he's designing ties into like all Stark technology. Like I think one of the videos I watched like theorized that he could have like a technological failsafe that he built into all future technology, like because he went all the way back in time and like laid this foundation for advanced technology, and he built a failsafe into it so that like if he's fighting Secret Wars, he can just go boom and like knock down all the Stark tech, all the
because it's all built on his technology. Yeah, I mean, when you have somebody who is the master of time in the way that Kang is, like it does mean that there's all sorts of shenanigans that they're going to bring into this, I think. Timey-wimey stuff.
Considering this movie was called QuANTumania, and considering the story beats already taken with He Who Remains, I'm disappointed that they didn't do something more creative with this character. Like you just said, he's a time traveler, multidimensional, which also I think they need to do a better job defining time travel versus multiversal travel, where the lines differ and how he differs in that way, you know? I don't know.
I feel like I have a fairly strong idea about that, mostly just from the Loki TV show, though.
But Loki feels very time-focused, whereas, like, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, that feels more multiversal.
Well, it's very time-focused because there's only one timeline in Loki. And they have been, for eternity, they've been pruning all of the things that don't lead to one timeline. So to me, it does make sense. Like at that moment when they started branching timelines, then you get all sorts of alternate timelines where you can go back and forth in time in that separate timeline, but it will have all sorts of different events happen because it's a parallel universe. To me, it does make sense.
Maybe the fundamental logic of how it operates in the movies and shows, but what I mean is like, why is Kang a threat? Is he a threat because there's so many multiversal Kangs and that's the problem and they're all going to fight? Or is he a threat because of his ability to go back and forth through time? Probably, it's kind of both.
Some of column A.
But I would like to get clearer about the ins and outs of the differences between those two manners of attack.
Me too. Just in general, I felt like this version of Kang was defanged too much. They took away all of his technology. He basically just had his suit.
He's decanged.
Yes, decanged. I like that. But so he didn't really feel like a real threat at any point in this movie to me.
In the flashback, maybe it got close.
Yeah.
Like I was more in Janet's shoes. Like, scary
for sure.
He's killing people.
But that's in part, I don't know, because they're leaving so much unshown. Like your imagination is really doing the hard work there.
But it's better than Gore the God Butcher.
Yes.
That you're seeing his destruction on a computer screen, it feels very disassociated. At least you get a brief glimpse of the carnage, which does more for me. It still suffers from the same problem as Gore the God Butcher, where you're not really seeing the damage. I'm not scared because I'm not seeing anything.
Right.
But they give you a little more than that.
Right.
That's like literally like a television broadcast in Thor. It's like, this guy's killing all these gods.
Yeah, exactly.
And that lady's like, Thor, remember me from the previous movies? Come help. Seriously.
Yeah.
It's like, I actually forgot about that character. Because Taika Waititi killed off all of Thor's friends in Ragnarok.
Right.
He just ran spikes through all of them.
I can't argue with that.
No. The franchise needed it at that time.
It did.
Yeah.
Anyway, takeaways from this movie. Obviously, neither of us were huge fans of this movie.
I guess we wove our takeaways in a little bit. I kept jumping in. Apologies, but
it's all good.
Yeah, so I guess we thought it would be a plot summary and then our thoughts, but it was kind of simultaneous.
Yeah. I do feel like we talked a lot about just the incoherent plot. Maybe we weren't a big fan of the writing. To me, the biggest problem with this movie is that what Marvel did so exceptionally well, the franchise that they built in the movies, was around these characters that the audience would root for. There was enough character work there that even if the plot kind of sucked, you were like, okay, but I want to go and see Captain America whoop some ass or whatever. I'm rooting for this guy because there was some emotional, weight to their decisions.
Yeah, and they were more concerned with telling one good story in a movie that was about a character
than
or
setting
a
up
group.
the next 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even look at Captain Marvel. It's timing. It's like right before these Avengers movies. It could have been just this, to amp you up for the Avengers movies, but it's almost completely standalone. It has nothing to do with those movies. Civil War is more of a blend.
Sure.
But that's the exception to the rule.
And I would say they still put effort into characterizing the motivations of those two leaders of Tony Stark and of Captain America.
Definitely.
And why this is even a thing that they're disagreeing on. They built on that character work that they'd done with Baron Zemo. All of that stuff, that mattered. It felt like it mattered to the characters, and so then it would matter to the audience. In this, they just put so little effort into making me feel like I cared about any of these characters and what was going to happen to them. And then what do you know? At the end of the movie, they're all totally fine. So why would I worry anyway?
Right. And it's funny to say that they sacrificed character and story would suggest that they spent the whole time doing awesome world building. I didn't even feel that.
No.
I learned a little more about Kang, but I still don't really understand how the adventures of Doctor Strange in Spider-Man or on his own connect with this in any significant way.
Right.
Charlize Theron showed up at the end of that movie. Who is she? What does she do? She can just cut her way into like other realms and stuff. So how's she different than America Chavez? And where's America Chavez? And what kind of opponent is she going to be to Kang? Why isn't Kang's goal like to get her?
Right.
She seems like the biggest threat to his plan. Where's she? There's so many things going on.
There's so many loose ends.
10 rings and bangles and...
They've left themselves a lot of loose ends, a lot of underdeveloped characters, a lot of, characters who are like Charlize Theron, who are just like a little toss-off, like, oh, here, this is coming. But there's so many, and you can only introduce so many characters before it gets kind of unwieldy. And there's just millions of these minor bit characters with like very undefined roles, I would say.
I mean, are we really going to see Eros again? Harry Styles?
I know, right?
What is that about? Thanos' brother? Thanos is dead. We've moved on. We're on Kang now.
Yeah.
Pip the Troll?
Oof.
But what do any of these things have to do with each other? It seems more like Marvel... I don't know what they did before, but it seems like they're not always throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks, but if something doesn't work, they abandon it very quickly and take this whole other direction, and it just ends up being very obvious.
It's reactionary is what it feels like. And the other thing is that even the minor characters were memorable in a lot of these earlier movies, even if they just... You were talking about Dalmatian or whatever from the first Ant-Man movies. He's a very minor character. I wouldn't be able to tell you the character's name in the first two Ant-Man movies, but he was memorable. I remember that guy. I remember the Baba Yaga stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who plays Chidi in The Good Place, can read minds in this one, who even is he? Why is he there? One thing that still sticks with me is who are all these human-looking people at the quantum realm? How did they get there? Are they natives? Did they get transported here like Janet and Kang did? What? They do none of that.
Nope.
Explanation or what's going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if we picked at it, we could find similar examples in older movies, but...
This was a mess, though. This was a mess of a movie.
It was a mess of a phase.
Yeah, unfortunately.
What were the consequences of Love and Thunder?
He gets a daughter. That's a big one.
Okay, that's true. But in terms of to the greater universe at large.
Yeah. A god-killing
is eternity not a thing anymore? But it's unclear, does the girl just have the powers of eternity?
That's a good question. Hopefully they explore that.
Think about it this way. This phase started with the other Arishem, all pissed off.
Right.
And he's like, I'll be back.
And then they've had how many movies since then? And
yeah. Not even so much as a mention. Nothing even acknowledged Tiamat sticking out of the water, did it? Except for maybe one project.
Yeah, I think they had it on TV or something, in maybe She-Hulk or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not what they used to do.
Yeah.
You heard about Sokovia about 400 times after it happened.
Yep.
In those phases.
Yeah. Well, that's enough about this movie, I think. Do we have any future expectations about how this is going to play into the next phase? This was kicking off phase 5.
Yeah.
So not exactly a glorious entrance.
And I'm actually excited for Guardians 3, but I just don't see how it's going to do world building.
No. At least I do have a lot more confidence in James Gunn to nail the character work.
Me too.
Than this.
I've heard a cool theory that the Kang we just met is the same person as He Who Remains, not a variant, but the same variant.
Right.
He will end up as this exact one. They have the same ultimate goal. This Kang could eventually, sort of beat the Avengers, weaponize Goliath, and then wind up right back here,
sure,
as he says. That's a cool theory. The Fantastic Four, they're going to have to play into this somehow. I don't know if they're going to go back and fight Rama Tut. I don't know if that movie will introduce Doctor Doom.
I think, the sneak peek at the end of this and the mid-credit scenes when they show you some of the other Kangs, I do think those 3 leaders are going to show up in future projects for sure. And one of them is definitely Pharaoh Ramatut. I don't know the guy with the raspy voice. I don't know the comics, so I couldn't identify him. But...
That is Immortus.
Oh, okay. I thought Immortus was He Who Remains.
He Who Remains is based off of Immortus, because in the comics, He Who Remains is actually this little old man that is actually connected to the TVA. TVA is connected to the Timekeepers, and they are not Kang in the comics.
Okay.
Timekeepers are real. There's 3 of them. There's a He Who Remains. There's all that stuff. And there is a TVA, but it's not Kang. So they've switched all that out, where He Who Remains is a variant of Kang. The Timekeepers are just fake. They're robots. And the TVA is controlled by Kang. So they've swapped all that out. In the comics, Kang has many variants. Ramatut being kind of I think it's the comic original, where it's Nathaniel Richards, who's he's bored in his time, so he goes back and conquers as a Egyptian conqueror. Then the Fantastic Four come and they fight. There's so many different variations of Kang. So Immortus is the longest living Kang. So Kang kind of has phases. When he's very young, he's actually Iron Lad. Who?
How many Iron characters are there? Because they just introduced Ironheart. Of course, there's Iron Man.
That's as many as I know of. I think there's more. I mean, there's War Machine.
Oh yeah, but that's
kind of counts.
He's not Iron Machine though.
Not in his name, but he's wearing a freaking Stark suit.
I know. I just meant the Iron.
Well, Iron Lad is wearing an Iron Man suit, so he's a young Nathaniel Richards that is actually a leader of the Young Avengers. I think it would be very cool if they cast someone young who looked like Jonathan Majors and had him as this character, basically fighting his future self. He's determined not to become Kang, which of course he does.
Right.
But then Kang becomes Immortus, who has lived long enough to live past the point of seeing himself become the villain. He's lived even longer than that. He, in the comics, orchestrates the Council of Kangs so that they actually fight and kill each other. And that's how he solves the problem of there being too many fighting multiversal Kangs. He tricks them into all fighting each other, and then he's just left with peace. Yeah. But in a way that where they kill each other, it doesn't hurt other people. And Immortus, I think, has partnered with the Avengers. He's more of an anti-hero. So at the beginning and the end of his life, he's more open to good. And in the middle, he's this monster.
That makes sense.
But I like the way that they do that. And then Scarlet Centurion is another very futuristic version, but where he didn't end up as Immortus. He's just a very, very powerful, teched out Kang, I think. I don't know as much about that character, but the bald, mechanical one seems to be a representation of Scarlet Centurion. Maybe just Centurion. He's not red.
They already have too many. They have the Scarlet Scarab already, so they got a couple irons. So they can't have more Scarlets.
Maybe that's why. Yeah, Scarlet Witch. That probably is why.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that's what we have to look forward to. I think both of us are hoping that this isn't a sign of things to come. That Marvel can do better than this and will in the future.
Hopefully, yeah. But it's an interesting time for maybe DC to come in.
Definitely, yeah. There's an opening.
Yeah. Unless it's just superhero fatigue. I think it's wrong to say that plays no part, but I don't think that's the dominant issue here.
No. I think a better movie than this would, would win people over. And I mean, The Boys is still really popular. The shows like that have, they made the HBO Watchmen series recently. I do feel like it's not just that. I mean, if you make a good show, even if it's about superheroes, people are going to watch it, or a good movie.
Maybe I can be so bold as to predict that The Flash will make more than the Batman.
Oh, that's a tall order.
Big money.
Yeah.
It might. There's more characters, and Michael Keaton coming back is enough to bring some older fans and people that might not otherwise oh my God, I got to go see this new Robert Pattinson Batman movie. They'll be like, wait, so you're telling me I'm going to see 2 Batmen and 2 Flashes, and one of them's Michael Keaton. Like, okay, take my money.
Yeah, it feels like a real opportunity. I mean, obviously the insider word is that it's a really good movie. I think we're going to see more once reviews start coming out. And that'll hopefully keep building the hype, because right now, like, everything I've heard is that it's going to be great.
Which is based on the studio execs' opinions, but it's mostly based on the test screenings.
Yeah.
But James Gunn is no idiot. I don't think he'd be so bold as to praise it so lavishly.
If they were just going to immediately pivot to something else, yeah.
Or just if he knew it wasn't going to be good. Yeah. I mean, he's seen behind the curtain at Marvel. He's made some really big superhero movies himself. I think he knows what he's doing when he says this is one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. He knows that it has to live up to or exceed that expectation. Otherwise, people are going to shred DC like never before.
Well, and when we had our episode where we talked about the James Gunn announcements, that was one of the things that James Gunn is bringing to the DC universe is credibility. Like, if he just immediately just incinerated that by pumping up a bad movie, like that would kind of defeat the point of bringing him in the first place.
True. Yeah. No, I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I certainly hope it's better than this damn movie.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to make it always about the Flash. Every episode, I'll find a way.
Now we just have to make sure not to corrupt this audio file, because I'm not talking about this movie a third time.
Yeah.
This is not worth that.
If this disappears into the ether, then so be it.
No one will miss it.
No, it's like kind of how, that's where I want my memory of this movie to go.
Exactly.
Just into the ether.
Yep.
Never want to think about it again.
And on that note...
Goodbye, everyone.
See you next time.
Don't be a dick.